Mother, why did you marry Tony? Asked Sarah. What do you mean, dear? Well, he isn't exactly very manly, that's all, and I was just wondering what attracted you to him? No, he is not, and that is what attracted me to him. You see, dear, I had dated lots of so-called real men and was dating one, Steve Collin, when I met you, Father. You dated Steve? He was the best man at your wedding, wasn't he? And don't you still go to dinner with him? Yes, dear, to all of those questions. Anyway, guys like Steve are good for some things, but you have to remember I was only 22 when I had the opportunity to take over this dress shop. Mrs. Johnson had gotten very sick and liked me and trusted me, and so she offered to sell the business to me. I had to concentrate on work and not being some guy's slave. Most men then would not stand for a woman doing her own thing and were very controlling. So when you, Father, came along and I discovered how docile and obedient he was, well, he seemed like the perfect husband. He really is very docile and obedient for a man, isn't he? Yes, he is, and you will learn, young lady, that being able to control your husband is a good and important thing. Don't get caught up in going with bad boys because they are rebels. Those kinds of boys are for fun, but for a serious relationship you want one like your father, meek, humble, obedient and loyal. I am not sure if there are very many boys like that. Your brother is like that. Speaking of my brother, he is taking my panties again. That's good, that tells me he is actively cross-dressing again. We need to catch him in the act and encourage him along. Mother, are you listening? He is taking my favorite panties and pretty soon I won't have any left. Stop it. I know how many panties you have, and his taking a few pairs is not going to run you out of underwear. Besides, you were the one that introduced him to wearing panties. You and Nancy, I swear, the way you two would dress him up and lead him on. Mother, I almost forgot, Nancy called me the other day and she is moving back to town. She was living with a guy and he got mean to her, so she left him, and then he started stalking her. She ended up having to get a restraining order. He has caused her so much trouble at her work and with neighbors that she is leaving the area and moving back here. That's wonderful, dear, you two were always so close and I know you missed her. Hey! Didn't she have sort of a crush on Randy? Yeah, she sure did. When we would dress Randy up, she would get all excited over it and make him do all sorts of things to tease him and control him. She was the one who really pushed dressing him up and having him play house with us. I think we need to work on your brother and get him reintroduced to Nancy, maybe this time as your new sister. What do you think? It could work. I don't know, she has not mentioned or asked about Randy since she left, but she did like him and she may be interested in him. I guess we will just have to wait and see. So when is Nancy coming to town? She will be here in just a few days. She found an apartment online in the Jennings building not far from the store here. She is going to call once she gets moved in. If I remember right, Nancy was never big about putting things away or cleaning up after herself. You remember that, right? I almost forgot about how she was that way. Well, Sarah, we may have found a hole to push Randy through and help Nancy out at the same time. What do you mean, Mother? Okay, here is the plan. Friday after work your father comes to the store and cleans it until about 1 a.m. I will be with Steve having dinner and dessert. Mother! I don't want the details. Sorry, I will be with Steve and not home until 2 a.m. If you tell Randy you're leaving and drive around the block, park your car and walk back to the house and sneak in, I bet you will catch him. You will need to give him a half hour so he is all dressed and at least partially made up. I will put some new dresses in his closet when we get home. Each time I do that, I know he has to feel them and try them on. You are so devious, mother, telling him you need to store those dresses in his closet for a few days and like he has never figured out that they are all his size. Listen, daughter, you need to start learning that males have very sensitive egos and you have to learn how to guide them into thinking they came up with things on their own while in fact you are leading them to think the way you want them to think. Besides, it's good for him to develop some feminine traits. Well, if he gets any more feminine traits, he's going to be more girl than I am. They both laughed and Leah said, I don't think we have to worry about that. Anyway, you sneak in and catch him. Now he will be really embarrassed and you will need to reassure him that's it okay and how pretty he is and you're glad he is doing it and you want to help him with it and how much you miss dressing him and playing with him when he was younger. Really lay it on thick and make sure he believes you. You help him fine-tune his look. Be sure he is passable and likes the way he looks. You will need to set up ahead of time with Nancy, a place to meet for ice cream or coffee or something. Then you take Randy out and drive him to where you're going to meet without him knowing what's up. Surprisingly, Nancy shows up and you introduce the two of them. Now remember that Randy is going to start hyperventilating when this happens, so keep your eye on him. I think it will work, mother. You really do have a devious mind, you know. Now, Sarah, why on earth would you ever say such a thing, and to your mother no less? You may fool father and Randy, mother, but you don't fool me. You forget I know how many times you made Tony stand on a stool in high heels and wear a dress so you could hem it for a customer. It's just a good thing he is too dumb to know you can't hem a dress for one person by trying it on another. Breast size, butt size, hip size, they all contribute to a real problem trying to do that. Sarah, that's not true, you just need to get the same body measurements, that's all. Well, the strange thing about that, mother, is that you're right and you used that as an excuse to put a corset on him and padded derriere and hips and stuff his bra, but mother, he always ended up the same size when you were done getting him the right size, so are you going to claim that all the customers were that exact size? Okay, I can see I can't fool you, but just like encouraging your brother to explore his feminine side, I wanted your father to feel my power in a feminine way and it worked, didn't it? I guess so. I still remember the time Nancy and I burst in and there was Tony standing on that wooden stool in white high heels with a white dress on. He was really decked out with a full slip and flared skirt and nylons. The only thing he was lacking was makeup and a wig. We had been dressing Randy as our sister for some time and I remember that after we left the room Nancy asked me, "Do all the boys in your family wear dresses?" I told her I guessed so and asked if the boys in her family wore them. She said, "No, but I wish they did. I like it when boys pretend to be girls." Tony sure did red-faced when we came in like that. Yes, I remember that. He was very embarrassed and it had a strange effect on him. How so, mother? It seemed to make him more submissive and obedient. He seemed to concentrate on his efforts better. That's why I set it up so Steve would walk in on him while he was wearing a dress. You set that up? You planned for that to happen to Tony? Mother, you really are really devious. Tony was distraught over that one. Yes, he was. I thought it would be good to expose him to Steve. He was beginning to ask too many questions about my dinners and stuff with Steve, so I wanted to put him in his place again. What do you mean again? Did I say again? Yes, mother, you did. Now tell me the whole story and stop pretending like I don't know what you said. Okay, well, when Steve and I were dating and I met your father, I never stopped seeing Steve. Every Friday like clockwork we went out and then back to Steve's place for some real fun. Well, as we got more serious, Tony started to ask questions about why I was still seeing Steve and we got in a fight. He left mad but came back later and apologized and said he would not ask any more questions. But I was not totally convinced, so I said to him, "Tony, this questioning me cannot go on. If you want to marry me, you have to learn not to question me. You have to trust that what I am doing is the best for me. You want me to have the best, don't you? He said he did, so I said, okay, then prove it to me. I want you to ask me to clean my apartment every Friday night while Steve and I are out. He gasped at this and hung his head, pausing for a moment. I knew it was the moment of truth. He slowly asked me if he could clean my apartment every Friday night while I was out with Steve. I told him I was not sure, and the look of defeat on his face was priceless. Then I conceded, and you should have seen the expression of relief. It was as if he was really happy that he was being allowed to clean my apartment while I was on a date with another man. I loved it. So, the next night was Friday, and when Tony got there he had on shorts and a t-shirt. I told him he needed to remove his shoes and socks to clean so he did not get it dirty again, and handed him an apron to wear. He did not want to wear the apron, but I insisted. Well, when he put it on, it looked like he had a dress on. It fell below his shorts and had enough ruffles to give it a dress look. I loved it and said nothing to Tony about what he looked like. When the doorbell rang, I asked him to get it, but followed behind, unknown to him, to see the reactions. When he opened the door and Steve saw him, his eyes grew big and looked him up and down like a man looks at a hot woman. He got a big smile on his face and stuck out his hand and told him who he was. Before Tony could say who he was, I said, "This is Tony, my fiancé and houseboy." I went over and kissed Steve, and out the door we went, leaving your father standing there hopelessly embarrassed. Wow, what did Steve say about it, and why did Tony ask him to be his best man at your wedding if all this went on? Steve thought it was hilarious and wanted to know why I would marry a wimp like Tony. It pissed me off, and I told him why, and why Tony would be my husband and not him. He got the point. And as for choosing him to be the best man, that was my idea. I chose all the men in the wedding, and I had dated each of them. Steve was the best, so he was the best man. And what did Tony have to say about that? It was comical, actually. When I told him who was in the wedding party, he opened his mouth and nothing came out. He shut it and tried again, but nothing came out. He did this like 10 times in a row. I swear, he looked like a fish, and I burst out laughing, and he just hung his head and left the room and never said a word or asked about it again. I declare, Mother, you must have wrote the book on being devious. I hope you never decide to do things like that to me. Have you? Have you manipulated me like that, Mother? Leah stared at her daughter a moment and placed her right hand on Sarah's cheek and said, Yes, I have, Sarah, but for your own good. I have trained you to be a real woman, your own woman, to use men for what they are to be used for, and understand how to be an alpha female rather than some whimpering prissy girl afraid to do or say anything and be used and abused by men. I was scared that things like what happened to your friend Nancy would happen to you, and I wanted you to be strong and independent and know who you were and what you wanted, and I hope that's what I have accomplished. Mother, you have, and I am glad you did. Thank you, Mother. The two women hugged and tears fell from their eyes. They both began to blink their eyes as if given a cue to do so at the same time to hold back the tears. They then separated from their hug, now becoming more concerned about their makeup being ruined from their emotions. Leah had raised Sarah to be her own woman. She taught her from the time she could talk to call her father Tony instead of Daddy, to make sure that the subordination a daughter typically has to her father was missing. She wanted Sarah to grow up a strong and independent woman, and she had. Leah had encouraged Sarah to dress her younger brother Randy as a girl and play girl games with her and her girlfriends. She wanted Randy to grow up knowing and understanding his feminine side. She felt that women should be in charge, and the only way to accomplish that was to begin with the children and raise them properly to understand that males were put on earth to serve and do the beck and call of women, and that women were the ones meant to be in control and make the decisions. It seemed to be working well for her family and she hoped it would spread. Leah had raised the males, including her husband Tony and her son Randy, to be the domestics. They did the housework, laundry, and cooking. They were subordinate to the women. They catered to the women. They learned what the women needed and wanted and provided those services. The males learned other things as well, like sitting to pee. Leah would not suffer a male in her household standing to pee. It was unsanitary and disgusting. Though when it came to her boyfriends, she often marveled at them being able to stand and hold their maleness in their fingers and direct its flow. But that was different. These were her males and she had full control over everything they did. She was certainly wise beyond her years. She was able to figure out at a young age that a woman could not find one man that would suit all of her needs, that it took more than one man to do that. She had the uncanny ability to understand how it had to work to be right. One male at home to be her mate who was above all else loyal, obedient, trustworthy, moldable, controllable, and unquestioning of her demand and needs. And other men to have fun with. She had accomplished both and wanted to pass this understanding on to her daughter and frankly to whoever else she could. She knew it was controversial and went against the norm, but she also saw and felt how good it made relationships. She fully understood that many males were very comfortable being soft and domestic and others were wild and could not be tied down. Each served his own purpose, and woe to the woman who got them mixed up, as her life would be one of misery and discontent. The two women had a store to run and got back to work with the plans they had discussed ready to go into action. Leah owned a large women's wear store called Elaine's Fashions and had done very well with it. She had 11 employees and was ready to do another expansion as the shop next to them had recently closed and Leah had purchased it. The opening would be in just over a week and there was a lot to do. Friday came and while Leah was on her weekly date with Steve, Tony was cleaning the store and Sarah was ready to put things into action. Sarah had gotten a suitcase ready with extra clothes and things in it so if it worked out with Nancy she could leave Randy with her. "Randy, I am leaving now. I won't be back until quite late, so see you later." "Okay, Sarah, hope you have a good time." Sarah left and made sure she made plenty of noise leaving. She left the drive in her car and drove to the post office, mailed some letters, and returned, parking well down the block from her home. She walked to the house and slipped in very quietly and listened. She could hear music coming from her upstairs bedroom. She carefully climbed the stairs and went to her room, finding the door nearly closed. As she peered inside, she could see that Randy was sitting at her vanity putting on her makeup. This really pissed her off, but she calmed down and opened the door, walking in as she did. Randy, sitting with his back to her and the music playing, had no idea that his sister was behind him. He was putting on lipstick as the final component to his makeup regime as Sarah came into view in the mirror. Randy was petrified. He froze like an instant ice age had fallen upon him. He did not even remove the point of the red lipstick from his lips, he simply perfectly froze in place. My Randy, you look very pretty, stand up and let me have a better look." Sarah could see the fear written all over Randy's face. It could not have been plainer if she would have taken the lipstick from his fingers and wrote "Scared to Death" on his face. "Come on, Randy, stand up, I want to see how pretty you are. You look so much prettier now than you did when you used to play dress up with Nancy and me. I miss those times, I loved it when you would dress up for us, now come on, let me see how pretty you look." Randy, in a trance-like state, lipstick still held to his lips, began to rise ever so slowly. Sarah took his hand and led him to the center of the floor and took the lipstick from him and placed it back on the vanity table. She then told him to turn. He did, but moved like a robot. "Randy, now come on, you can do better than that. Wake up, Goofy, I want to see how pretty you are and then we will see what we can do to improve on your looks, okay?" Randy shook his head in agreement and became a little more fluid but was still in shock that he had been caught. His sister's agreeable temperament did not seem to fit the situation, and so he was not at all comfortable and waiting for the bomb to drop on his head. Sarah looked him over and saw a few flaws in his makeup and took the time to correct them, showing Randy the correct way to do it just as if it were a mother and daughter in the room. Randy began to be more comfortable and Sarah was joking and talking as if nothing out of the ordinary was happening. Sarah then stood back and said, "I love your choice of dresses, Randy. That one seems to suit you nicely. You look very cute in it and it fits you perfectly. That's one of the dresses Mother just put in your closet yesterday, isn't it?" Randy shook his head in affirmation. He seemed to be having a heartbeat again, but not everything was fully working yet. The dress he was wearing was a white with yellow print. The skirt flared nicely, accenting his hips. Randy had filled out his B-cup bra with panties to provide the breasted look that every sissy boy desires. "Did you stuff your bra with panties, Randy?" Randy hung his head and mumbled, "Yes." "Well, that looks okay, but I think we need to get you a real set of falsies. You are old enough now to wear them, so I will buy you some real falsies so you have a nicer look, okay?" Randy was real interested in that idea. He had no money, in fact neither he nor his father were permitted to have any money, so he had no way to purchase anything like that on his own, but he had dreamed of them. He knew what they were and he had wished he had some. He had tried various things from fruits cut in half to water balloons, but they leaked. Randy had sought a more feminine look on his own and Sarah's words definitely hit a chord. He started to get real comfortable now. Looking sheepishly at his sister he said, "Okay, it's okay." Sarah felt the power a woman feels when she has full control of a male. It's not a crazed power like a dictator gets, but rather one of complete comfort and confidence. She liked the feeling and instantly began to understand what her mother had been taking about. "Lift your skirt and slips, Randy. I want to see what panties you have on." Randy started to do as told, then remembered he had on his sister's panties and became terrified again. Sarah noticed this and figured he had on a pair of her missing panties. She smiled at him and said, "It's okay, Randy, I know you were wearing my panties, I just want to see which ones, that's all." "It's okay, really, I am honored that you like my panties so much, I think you have great taste." Randy was still doubtful. His moment of comfort was a fleeting one and paranoia set in again, but something inside him made him lift his skirts so Sarah could inspect his panties. Randy was not accustomed to disobeying his sister or any woman for that matter, so conditioning overcame his urge to resist his sister's order. As he lifted his skirt, Sarah's yellow Hanes her way nylon size 6 panties came into view. The yellow was pretty close to the yellow in the dress. She nodded her head as her brother stood there in front of her holding his skirt hem up revealing his panties and said, "Very nice, Randy, I like the way you have color coordinated your outfit. Yellow in the dress and matching yellow panties, you have done very well." Randy started to cry and said, "I am sorry, Sarah, you must think me a terrible person. I should not have done this and I should not have taken your panties. I am sorry, please don't hate me." All of Randy's emotions seemed to pour out at once. Sarah felt a motherly instinct and went to him holding him. He hugged her back. "It's okay, Randy, really it's okay. I think you are very beautiful and yes, you should have not taken my panties, without asking, but you had none of your own and you're old enough now, you should be able to wear panties if you want to and not have to wear those ugly uncomfortable male things. Tell you what, Randy, how many pairs of panties do you have?" Sarah thought he may have 5 or maybe even 6 pairs and wanted to see what he would say. 11, I have 11 pairs in total." Sarah was taken aback by this. She knew he had been taking them, but 11 pair, the little panty thief. "That's all? That's not nearly enough. Let's see, why don't we go over to my panty drawer and you pick out 3 more pairs right now? Any ones you want, and then when we can get to the store we will get 14 more, okay? Brandy quit crying and started to smile. Really, you would let me do that? Yes, Brandy, I will really let you do that. You don't have nearly enough pairs of panties to color coordinate all your clothes, and besides we all know how much fun it is to look through them and pick out the most perfect ones for that day. Brandy was very excited now, and it was as if Sarah had found the key to the cage door and Brandy was free. She told him to run and put the panties in his room, then followed behind him without him knowing to see where his panty stash was. He lifted his mattress and placed them under it, then smoothed out the bed sheet. As he stood and turned, he saw her standing there. He got scared again and she scolded him. Brandy, that is no way to take care of pretty panties. Now you get them out from under your mattress and let's clean out a drawer. We'll get rid of your boy underwear and turn it into a proper panty drawer right now. But what about my other underwear and stuff? I don't have any place to put them if we turn that drawer into a panty drawer. I thought I told you that you were old enough to wear panties all the time now and could get rid of your other underwear? Yes, but what about Mother? What will she think of me if she finds out? Won't she be mad? Brandy, you are an idiot. Why do you think she has been storing those dresses in your closet? Well, she said she didn't have enough room elsewhere, that's why. Really, Brandy, and they all happen to be in your size, and the panties and bras that were in your size and shoes that fit your size, you really think that was all by accident? You mean she put that stuff there so I would try it on? Duh. You think? She has been hoping you would like wearing girls' things and would wear them more often, but she didn't want to make you feel you had to. She wanted it to be your choice. Brandy stood there with a surprised look on his face. He never thought for a moment this had all been planned and that both his mother and his sister knew of his cross-dressing activities. He truly thought he was being sneaky enough to fool them. Brandy, lift your skirts again, I want to check something. Brandy did as told without hesitation this time. Sarah noticed he had no bulge and walked to him, cupping her fingers to feel between his legs from the front. You're tucked just like Nancy taught you to do years ago. Good girl, Brandy. I am glad you remembered. Too bad she moved away. Did you like her, Brandy? Before you answer, you have to remember that when you are in girls' clothes we are sisters and sisters share everything and every secret. If you are going to share my panties you have to tell me the truth, okay, sister? Brandy was being sucked in big time by his big sister's words. He felt comfortable with her now and was honest. Sarah, on the other hand, now understood how easy it was for her mother to manipulate Tony and how addictive it was to do so. I liked her a lot, Sarah, and I was really sad to see her move away, but I don't think she ever liked me. Oh, I wouldn't make that bet if I was you. She liked you a lot as well. Do you remember how she loved to make you hike up your skirt and would rub your pantied bottom and get you all flustered? It was obvious that Brandy remembered this because his face turned red and then beet red. Hey, let's go back to my room and we'll do your nails up real pretty with fake nails and all, okay? Really, Sarah? Thank you for being so nice to me and thank you for helping me. No problem, let's go and do it and then we will think of something else fun to do. You know Mother won't be home until real late and neither will Tony. They went back to Sarah's room and she did his nails for him. It was obvious that Brandy was nearly in heaven from all this feminine attention and getting to be a girl himself. They finished up and then Sarah paraded him around, took some photos, and they both truly enjoyed the time together doing female stuff. Okay, Brandy, let's go and get the car and go for a ride. What, a ride where? I can't go out. Why not? You look very pretty, no one will ever make you for a boy and you will really enjoy it. Now it is not a suggestion, it's an order, so let's go. Randy knew he had to do what she said, but he was scared. They went out the door and down the street to where Sarah had parked the car. A couple of guys passed them on the sidewalk and whistled at them. This made Randy nervous and then proud. Yes, he was starting to like going out dressed and made up like a girl. As Randy got in the car, he instinctively sat first and then swiveled and lifted his legs with knees together into the passenger side of the front seat. Sarah got in as well and they drove downtown. They drove around for a while and Sarah had to run into a store. She told Randy he could stay in the car and he did. When Sarah got inside, she called Nancy and asked her to meet her at the Baskin-Robbins ice cream parlor in 10 minutes. Nancy said she was busy and Sarah told her it was very important, she had something she needed to show her right away and to meet her there. Nancy agreed and Sarah returned to the car. She then drove to the Baskin-Robbins and she and Randy went in. Randy was nervous again, so she told him he would be just fine if he just smiled and did not talk. Sarah ordered 2 cones and they took a seat in a booth and started to eat them. It was not long and here came Nancy. Sarah jumped up and ran over to her calling her name and they hugged. She whispered in her ear, "Just play along with me." Nancy looked at her funny and said, "Okay." They went over to the table and sat down and Nancy looked at Randy but did not recognize him. Sarah said, "This is my cousin Liz." "Oh, hi, nice to meet you, Liz." And with this Nancy started to look more and more at Randy. Then she said, "Wow, you look a lot like her brother Randy." "Do people ever tell you that?" "How is Randy anyway?" "Oh, he's fine," Sarah said, holding back a burst of laughter. "He's changed a lot in some ways and in others he is the same Randy you remember. You know, like the one we used to dress up like a girl Randy." Sarah started to laugh and Nancy looked back and forth at the two of them and then it dawned on her what was going on. "That is you, Randy, isn't it?" Randy turned beet red and Sarah said, "It sure is Randy, doesn't he look cute all dressed and made up?" "Yes, he does. Yes, you do, Randy, and I always liked it when you were dressed up. I think I much prefer my guys that way anymore after being with Brad. He was terrible, Sarah. He hit me and even kicked me several times. I always remember Randy being sweet and doing whatever we wanted and trying to make us happy. I really do think you look very pretty, Randy, and I am glad to see you again. Can we go to your apartment, Nancy, and see what's going on?" "Oh, Sarah, it's such a mess. You know me, I don't do well with neatness anyway, but the mess I have in there even bothers me. It's terrible." They drove to Nancy's apartment complex in the Sterling building. Nancy's apartment was on the 2nd floor of the building. When they entered the apartment, they could see what Nancy was talking about. After a few moments, Sarah said, "Randy, take these car keys." Neither he nor his father had a driver's license or were allowed car keys or money, "and go down and open the trunk and there is a suitcase in there, bring it up here." As soon as Randy left, Sarah told Nancy what was going on with Randy. She told her how her mother was looking for a woman to start to take over Randy and keep him as he was, and she wanted to know real fast if Nancy was interested in doing this with Randy. Nancy stuttered a bit and then said, "Sure, I always liked Randy a lot, and after Brad I think he is exactly what I need." "Good, then I am going to leave him with you here tonight and he can clean this mess up for you." It was not long before Randy came back in the door and Sarah told him she was going to leave him there with Nancy to help her, and there were some clothes in the sweet case for him. She said, "Before I leave I want you to change into the green striped maid's uniform that is in there. I am sure it will fit you and it will be a lot more practical for cleaning than that pretty yellow print dress you have on." "Before you do, Randy," said Nancy, "I want to take a look at you." She had Randy walk and turn and pose, and then she said, "Okay, sissy boy, time to lift those skirts so I can make sure you have your panties on right." Randy did not even hesitate. He did exactly what she said without any hesitation. Sarah thought this was a sign of Randy's respect and love for Nancy. Nancy walked around him checking his panties out, and then she began to rub him. "Oh, how Randy liked this," she said. "Well, I will say you do have your panties on correctly. They are very pretty and I like the way they match your dress, and I also like the way they feel, Randy. If you do a good job, I am going to spend some time with you over my lap feeling your panties later on." There was not a more inspiring comment that could be made to Randy than what Nancy had just said. He had always loved and respected Nancy. He loved her domination of him. It made him feel little and strangely secure. He liked her controlling him and telling him what to do. So different than Brad was, and Nancy welcomed the change. "Sarah, do you think your mother would object to me calling him Brandy?" "I don't see why. It's close to his original name and it's pretty, so yes, I think she would be fine with it." "How about you, Randy? Would like it better if I called you Brandy?" "Yes, Nancy, that would be real fine with me. I think we shall also refer to her as a her from now on as well," said Nancy. The two women giggled and Randy was sent to put on the maid's uniform. Sarah hung around and talked more to Nancy about Brandy and told her she and her mother would be by the next day so her mother could see Brandy and of course Nancy's apartment. When Brandy returned, she looked cute in her new maid's uniform and both ladies told her that. Brandy was told what to do and went right to work. Sarah left and thought about the situation and was quite proud of herself about the way it went. She liked the idea of her brother being kept as a girl. If only she could figure out how to get Tony kept like a girl too, she thought. Nancy worked Brandy for hours and then she told him it was time to take a break. She said, "Let's see what else Sarah put in here for you to wear." They were both dying to find out what all was in the suitcase. Nancy dumped it out on the bed, one of the only completely clean rooms in the apartment at the moment. There were several pairs of panties and some bras. A pretty nightie set which was pink with white lace trim on it. Some makeup and nail polish and a hairbrush. There were nylons and hair bows and all sorts of girly items, mostly too girly for any adult female but perfectly suited to a sissy like Brandy. Brandy had very pretty hair for a boy. Both she and her father were required to allow their hair to grow, take very good care of it and keep it in ponytails. But now Brandy's was allowed to have her hair down and it fell to his shoulders. It was clean and well conditioned so it looked naturally beautiful. She could easily have passed in a ladies' hair commercial. Nancy was tired from moving and sat on the bed and told Brandy to lie over her lap. He did as told and she brushed up his maid's dress and slip and began to rub her panty-covered bottom. Brandy loved it and was soon quite relaxed. Nancy did this for a while, then told Brandy to put on her nightgown. They were going to bed. Brandy changed right there and then and stood looking quite juvenile and cute in her pink shorty nightgown. Nancy placed a couple of blankets on the floor beside her bed and told Brandy that was her bed for the night. They both got in their respective beds, and as Nancy drifted off to sleep she thought about how nice it was to have a male dressed like Brandy was and sleeping on the floor next to her bed instead of in it. It symbolized that the real power of a relationship lay with the female. It made the bold statement that a male so sissified and so obedient that he thought only of serving and worshipping his superior feminine counterpart made for the most wonderful and longest lasting of relations. Brandy went to sleep that night knowing his place. Knowing he was not what society portrayed as a real man. No, he knew he was not. He knew he was a sissy owned and controlled, and he loved it. He loved Nancy for her power, her wisdom, and her control. They both slept very contently knowing life would be good from this day forward. The next day the apartment was coming together nicely when Sarah called and asked how it was going. Nancy said they should be finished in an hour or less. "Good, I want to bring Mother by and see it and Brandy." I told her all about the stuff I did to Brandy yesterday along with what you are doing to her, and she really wants to see it for herself. How about getting Brandy back into the yellow print dress and have her serve us all lunch, but don't tell her what's going on. We'll just show up at 12:30 p.m., okay? I like it and can't wait. And oh Sarah, thank you my dear friend for giving me your brother. I think this is really going to work out nicely. I slept better last night than I have in years and awoke this morning feeling reinvigorated. You're very welcome, Nancy, and it's a two-way street. Thank you for wanting him and taking over his training. Bye now. Brandy, let's get finished up and then you can make lunch. Make a lot so I have extra for tomorrow, okay? Okay. Brandy, I think we need to discuss how you address me. You will reply to me or address me as Ms. Nancy, and you will say, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Are we clear on that? Yes ma'am, I mean yes Ms. Nancy. Brandy, like all sissies, liked having a title to address. It made her feel little and secure again. When he was younger, Nancy had taught him to curtsy some, and he wondered if he remembered how to do it. He thought he would practice when he was alone and see. As a sissy, he needed this type of structure to feel good about himself. Brandy finished up cleaning and then went right to work fixing lunch. It was 12:15 and Nancy said, Brandy, why don't you change into the pretty yellow dress you had on yesterday? I like you in that dress and we can eat lunch together with you in it. Yes ma'am, right away ma'am. Good girl. Brandy liked the dress a lot as well, and she could not wait to get back into it. As she was putting it on, Nancy came in the bedroom and decided she should have a large pink bow put in her hair. She sat on the bed while Nancy fixed it to her hair. They had just finished when the doorbell rang. Get the door, Brandy. Without hesitation or thinking, Brandy went straight to the door and opened it. There stood his sister and his mother. It was a shock at first, but he soon calmed down as he saw the huge smile form on his mother's face. Well, it looks like I have a new daughter. Don't you look beautiful, honey? Let me see you. Turn and walk for me, Brandy. That's what they call you now, isn't it? Yes, mother. Thank you, mother, for the nice compliments. Oh, you're welcome, honey. You look so cute. How do the clothes feel to you, sweetie? They feel nice, mother, so much nicer than boy clothes. I hope you don't mind me liking to wear them. Mind? You're silly. I love you in them. They are so you. They had a nice lunch and visit and talked mostly about Brandy as he was now and before when the girls were little and used to dress him up. He was embarrassed many times, but it was obvious that he even enjoyed the embarrassment. When they were getting ready to leave, Leah asked Nancy if she wanted Brandy to stay longer or if she should take her with her. Nancy said to please leave her. She wanted to get to know Brandy again a lot better, so Brandy was left and the two women left. Mother, I have been thinking about some way to vastly increase the store's traffic and wondered what you thought of this idea. Well, that sure would be nice with the expansion and all, and this recession isn't probably the best time to be doing this, but I don't know when if ever we would get another chance to pick up the additional floor space, so yes, let's hear it. Okay, what if we ran in our weekly ad that we would do a free alteration of any garment that a person brought it to our store while they waited? I mean, it would not have to be one of our items, it could be any piece of clothing the person owned. Well, yes, I am sure that would bring a lot of traffic in, but my dear, we would have to hire at least 2 seamstresses to handle it, and that all costs money. I know, mother, I figured it would take 2 to handle the traffic as well, but what if I told you we could get the 2 seamstresses for free? Then what would you think? I would think you are daft. Where are you going to get 2 seamstresses to work free? That's hard work, you know. Yes, mother, no it is. I have done it, but we have 2 seamstresses right under our noses that will work for free and put in free overtime if we need it, and I think we can literally double the traffic. If you consider what we'll do while they wait, they will browse our shop and make purchases. What are you talking about? Will you lay out this plan of yours and quit beating around the bush? I don't see any seamstresses under my nose. Tony and Brandy, they both know how to sew very well. What if we used them? Okay, I see where you're coming from now, and I do like the idea, but you know the ladies just don't like it when men are around the shop all the time. Once in a while is fine, but they don't like men in there. It's a no boys allowed, remember? Well, I know all that, mother, and right now I don't think anybody in the shop would have a problem with Brandy being there all day. I mean, he does not look like any man I ever saw. And what if we did the same thing to Tony? What if we turned Tony into Tanya? What if the two of them wore a seamstress uniform to work every day and came separate from us? And what if we kept them both in girls' clothing 24/7 on the pretense they needed the practice? I think we can pull it off. I mean, I know we can pull it off. Look how easy it was to turn Randy into Brandy, and I am sure Tony will be just as easy. He has spent a lot of time in ladies' clothing already. Leah said nothing. She was driving and thinking about the plan her daughter just presented. She mulled it over and over, looking for a fault, but could not find one. She looked at her daughter, and her daughter looked back at her and shrugged her shoulders. You know, Sarah, I think you have something. I think you really have something. This is going to make us a lot of money. We can't lose. Two sissies working for free to bring them in, and then all those women who will want something for nothing will end up with something before they leave. We are going to need more sales help. Got that coved too, mother. When do you want her to start? What? What has gotten into you, Sarah? You have really started to think things out. What, do you have another sissy in mind for that position as well? No, not so lucky on the sales position. We will have to pay her, but not what she's worth anyway. It's Nancy, Mom. She was working at Victoria's Secret and was the top salesperson in the whole district, which covers 5 states. You're kidding? Nope, it's true, and we have her if you want her. Well, yes, I want her. Look, let's get her started this week after she is settled in, because a week from Monday we're going to be swamped. I can just see it. Okay, but wait, now tell me about these uniforms. Where are you getting them at? I am not getting them. I want the two sissies to make their uniforms. It saves money and gets them in practice. We can make them look a little more sissyish than if we bought them, and I was thinking they could make them with special little seamstress aprons to hold their stitch ripper, scissors, razor blade, measuring tape, and pins. They should be pink for sure, and they can wear girls' pink running shoes to match. They should be able to make at least 3 uniforms each this week if we start them right away. Well, daughter, I am proud of you, so very proud. You have done me right. You put your brother and your father permanently in dresses and made us a lot of money to boot. But I think there should be one little change. I think we should take the 2 soon-to-be pansies to the store tomorrow when it is closed and tell them we need to make 2 uniforms for a client for Monday, and we need them to be fit models for us, as they are exactly the sizes we need. And isn't that a coincidence and lucky for us? Then Monday morning we will get them back in their uniforms and let them walk to the shop and start work. Mother, like I said before, you are so devious. Well, I hate to tell you this, daughter dear, but you are too. They busted out laughing and talking about how the 2 sissified men would look and how much they looked forward to it happening. And yes, it did happen. Tony became Tanya, and father and son sat side by side in the back of the women's wear store called Elaine's Fashions, sewing for free to make the 2 women very wealthy. Nancy took the job and quickly became top saleswoman. She married Brandy, got his name legally changed to Brandy, and he took her last name. He never wore another item of male clothing after that Monday, and neither did his father. Sarah found a sissy of her own to train, and all 3 women are very happy. Leah started seeing Steve a lot more and even having him stay at her house on weekends. All 3 sissies are currently scheduled to get breast implants as compliments of the store, showing the store's gratitude for working free up to 10 hours a day. Sarah's sissy, Penelope. Works as a seamstress's helper at the store now as well and is learning how to sew in the process. He preps the items that need altered by ripping out seams, pressing and such. Sarah started dating one of the reps that called on the store, and he has now moved closer so they can spend more time together. Just the other day the two women were ready to leave when their dates showed up at the store. As they were leaving with their respective boyfriends, they turned and bid their sissy husbands goodbye and simultaneously giving the two sissies orders to make sure the house was cleaned before they got home from their dates. As they turned to leave with their dates, they looked at each other and both said at the same time, like mother, like daughter.